Hey everyone, I'm Miss Susan and I'm so glad you're joining me again on Let's Sew Kids. Before we get started sewing, we need to know how to thread the sewing machine and to wind a bobbin. So in this session, we're going to be doing just that. I'll show you the basics of how to wind the bobbin for your machine, how to insert a bobbin, and thread your sewing machine. So let's get started. Okay, in order to sew on your sewing machine, you need both an upper thread and a lower thread, and your bobbin is what holds your lower thread, so we're going to start with that. Different machines use different bobbins, so always use the one that is recommended for your machine. All machines come with a few bobbins, but in your manual, if you don't have that information in your manual, there should be information as to which bobbin works for your machine, because not all of them are equal. These first two look very similar. Actually, they look almost alike, but they are the same amount of round. They're the same thickness, but this one is, the outside of it is very flat. This one is a little bit rounded. They actually go to two different sewing machines, even though they're really close. You really want to use whichever one belongs with that machine to get the best result. These happen to be plastic bobbins. Here's a third plastic bobbin, goes to another machine. You can see it's a little bit bigger around, and it is also a lot thinner than the other two. So it is not going to fit in the first two machines. It's not going to fit in, these aren't going to fit into that machine. Here's just another bobbin, just so you can see. It's a metal bobbin. It goes to yet another machine. This one, even though it's kind of similar in size, would not work in the machine that one goes with. So this one goes into a certain machine, and each of these actually go into different machines. So again, always check to see what type of bobbin your machine takes. There's also different ways to insert the bobbin. We're going to go over that in a few minutes, but first I'm going to show you how to wind a bobbin. So first we're going to start off with winding a bobbin. All machines are going to have a similar method of winding a bobbin as what you'll see here today. You'll start out with the thread you're going to be using for your project. There'll be a couple of thread guides, and then the thread goes on the bobbin. So I'm going to start out and put my spool of thread. This happens to be, what I'm putting it on is called a spool pin, and there are horizontal spool pins. Some machines have vertical spool pins, some have both. This one actually has a little attachment if I want to use a vertical spool pin. We're going to use the horizontal today. And you can see on this particular machine, there is a diagram for winding a bobbin right on the top of the machine. It makes it very easy to have it right there, but not all machines have this. So if you don't have that, just refer to your machine manual, and it should have a diagram on how to wind your bobbin. So I've got my spool on the spool pin. I'm going to go through a thread guide, and what a thread guide is a you're going to see them both in winding the bobbin and when we actually thread the machine. It simply directs the thread to where you want it to go. And we're going to go around another. This is a little tension disc that makes sure that your thread is going to be the correct tension. You'll get a nice, smooth, even spool of thread. Okay, my bobbin escaped me there for a minute. So I'm going to add my bobbin. And I want to wind it around several times. And I'm going to snap it over. And where I'm pushing it is, there's a separate bobbin winding motor in your machine, and that's what's engaging. This metal piece here is going to ensure that the bobbin doesn't overfill. It will automatically stop when the bobbin is full. If you're working on a large project, you may want to start off filling a couple of bobbins. If you have a very small project, you don't have to fill it all the way, just fill it part way. So I'm going to touch my foot control. And that's it. Once you have the thread that you need on there, you snap it back over. There's actually a little thread cutter there. We'll cut the thread. And I have my bobbin ready to go. I'm going to leave my top thread in there for when we work on that. Okay, we are going to insert the bobbin into the sewing machine. This is called a top loading machine. It means that we'll take off this little cover and the bobbin goes down here into the machine. You don't take anything out, you just put it in. You'll see what I mean when I show you the front loading one. But there's a diagram, I'm not sure if you can see that, but it tells me that I want to have my thread coming off, my thread coming off this way. And I'm going to insert it, and there's actually a little arrow there, and that's all there is to it. We'll put the cover back on, and we'll get ready. Once we have the rest of the sewing machine threaded, we'll slide that up. But that's called the top loading bobbin. The next type of sewing machine has a front loading bobbin. It's usually behind a little door that keeps it protected. And the way you take that out, instead of the little cover, you slide out. Let's see if I can get that in for you. There's a little lever there that you disengages it from inside, and you can take your bobbin out. To put it back in, just going to slide it in there. There's a little notch in there. And once you hear a little click, it's ready to go. There we go. And it snaps in. And that's your front loading bobbin. The third type of bobbin is a side loading bobbin. It's just like this, except you load it on the side. You'll see that probably on older machines, antique machines, but the mechanism is going to be exactly the same. Now that we have the bobbin ready to go, we're going to thread the upper thread. I have my thread on, my spool thread on the spool pin. This is called a spool cap. It serves a couple of purposes. It holds your spool on. If you sew really fast, it might come flying off, so it holds the there. But sometimes the spool itself can have some rough edges on it, so this allows the thread to move smoothly over it. This particular machine comes with 3 different sizes. This is the medium, and then I have a small one and a large one. Depending on the type of spool I'm using, I would match it up to that. Now we are going to, again, follow, not only did we have the guide to wind the bobbin, there's also a guide here built into it that to thread the top. And I'm going to thread down as far as here, and we'll zoom in on the presser foot area after that. By the way, one thing I want to let you know, when we're threading the machine, you need to turn it off. If somebody happens to hit the foot pedal or foot control, you happen to hit the foot control, it's not going to be a pretty sight. So make sure when you have to have it on, obviously, when you wind the bobbin. Once you're done with your bobbin, then turn your machine off. So I'm going to again follow the thread guides. I have a 1 here, and it says 2, it brings you down to 3, around to 4, and down to 5. So we're going to do that. There's actually a little thread guide back here, and I'm going to bring it down through the tension discs, and we'll talk about those in a little bit. I'm going to come up, and there is a metal bar here. It kind of looks like a swan. It doesn't come all the way out, so you can't see it real well, but it's called the thread take-up, and that allows the thread to pull up once it's made the stitch underneath. So that we have to get it into the thread take-up. On some older machines, especially antique machines, it may not be open like that. It may come out a little bit further, and then you just thread the machine like you would a needle. And we're going to bring it down to here. I have one. Well, we'll go ahead and zoom in on this, and we'll get the rest of the machine threaded and ready to sew. Okay, so once we've gotten through our upper thread guides, through the take-up, and through the tension disc, we have two more places to thread the needle. One of them is by this little number 6 here is another thread guide, and it directs the thread down into the eye of the needle, and then we have the needle itself. When we are threading the upper area of the sewing machine, we want the tension disc open so that thread drops in there where it belongs. But once we get down to this point, we want to put the presser foot down so those discs engage, and my thread is tight and makes it much, much easier to thread. So I'm going to go slide it in on that last, on the last guide. And I want to show you, here's the needle. You can see the eye on this particular machine, on most machines actually, threads from front to back. There are a lot of probably older machines that can go side to side. Just refer to your sewing machine manual to see which one it is, but I think most machines now actually go front to back. So I'm going to take my thread, and please bear with me because I am left-handed, and I'm trying to keep it, to make it easier, get your thread snips and get yourself a clean end. And I'm trying to do this so you can see. I think we're in. There we go. Okay, so now we've got it threaded. We're going to lift up the presser foot. And we now need to bring the bobbin thread up from underneath. So we're going to turn the hand wheel so the needle goes all the way down and then all the way up again as far as it can go. Pull your bobbin thread out from underneath and slide both underneath the foot. You want to make sure that both of them are underneath the foot. Otherwise, you run the risk of sewing your project to your presser foot, and you don't want to do that. All sewing machines are going to have a slightly different path of threading. They all thread, though, on the same principle. They're all going to have thread guides. They're all going to have take-up levers, and they're all going to have tension discs. So, again, just refer to your manual, unless maybe you have a machine that has the thread path actually printed on it. But just remember that all machines are going to have the same type of threading path. They're all going to have those same three things. The thread guides, the take-up lever, and the tension discs. So that's it on our session for threading the machine. Practice sewing on your own machine, including winding a bobbin, inserting the bobbin into the bobbin area, and inserting your threads on top. And I encourage you to practice a little bit with some scrap fabric. Once you have everything set up, just to make sure you've got that stitch correct. I still do that now a lot. Make sure the stitch looks like I want it to. And if you do that before you start your project, you'll always be happy with your results. So now you can get ready, get set, and let's sew.